Hello, everybody. Welcome to a practice report. I'm Brian Emhauser coming to you from my back deck, as I like to do for these post-practice reports when it's a nice day like it is today. And we've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Today was day one of the Seahawks mandatory minicamp. So what's the difference? And hello, Finn. What's the difference between today and any other OTA practice that we have been witnessing as we saw last week? I can't really tell you much that was different in terms of what they're able to do. I could just tell you that one's mandatory and one's voluntary. So that's the main difference that I'm aware of. We did get to talk to Coach Mike Macdonald after this practice, as well as Cooper Kupp and Julian Love. There's some really good stuff in there. As soon as I'm done with this, I'm going to record a separate episode that will air tomorrow morning. It will be available for anybody. Well, I haven't decided yet. I might make it available for club level and hire folks earlier. But for right now, the plan is I will make that available tomorrow morning so you guys can watch it all together. It'll be an instant premiere. I will be out golfing tomorrow morning. It's my birthday tomorrow, so I'm taking the morning to do exactly what I want to do. Not that I don't want to spend it with all of you, but I do want to do that and try to get in 18 holes before day 2 of Seahawks mandatory minicamp. I'll be there tomorrow, and Mike Macdonald will be talking again. I had enough questions that I definitely didn't get them all in today. I'm looking forward to asking some of those tomorrow. If you are looking for one of the player interviews that I do after pretty much every practice, we were not able to record one today. The players were not available. So that was too bad, but not the worst thing in the world. And I will have someone tomorrow. So keep an eye out for the player interview. Generally, the player interviews are available for club level and higher YouTube members first, and then everybody else the next day. So if you aren't already a YouTube member, go ahead and do that. Like and subscribe. We're over 20,000 subscribers, continuing to grow. All right, I know you're all dying to hear about the camp practice. I will tell you all about it. Last thing I want to say as a preamble, if you haven't already gone over to hbtix.com, hbtix.com, that is the place where you can buy Seahawks tickets from Seahawks fans, or you can sell Seahawks tickets to Seahawks fans. It is the only place where you have some control over who your tickets go to, and there is a community built around it, so you have some idea that these are people that can be vouched for. They might be a member of my Patreon community. They are, as best we can, provide you information to verify these really are Seahawks fans that will sit in your seats. There are tickets to the 49ers game that are available up there now. There's dozens of seats. There's seats that have already been sold. If you want to help protect Lumen Field and protect home field advantage, tell everybody you can about hbtix.com. No fees. I don't get paid for it. I just want to give Seahawks fans a place where they can sell Seahawks tickets to other Seahawks fans. So that's the idea, but I need your help to spread the word. Sign up, list your tickets, buy tickets, do the thing. And go over there and check it out. So there's a bunch of tickets up there, club level, field level, all sorts of stuff. Check it out at hbtix.com. All right. So all that aside, let's get into it. Let's talk about the Seahawks mandatory minicamp. As per usual, you will see me looking down at my notes because I am doing this. Essentially, I just walked in from practice and the press conferences. My life is somewhat during these days packing up my camera and my laptop and my tripod and all that stuff, and then breaking it down and then putting it back up and breaking it down. Today's no different. So I just got home, just going to be looking down at my notes every once in a while at a couple things. I'll give you some general thoughts first before I get into specifics. So my general read, and I don't like the framing. I'm going to change the framing on this. Sorry. A little silly for me to do that during the middle of the show, but you know what? I don't like the way it looked. It was a little too high. Hopefully this is a little bit better. All right. That's a little bit better for my eyes, at least. All right. So, everyone's going to know about the offense. Sam Darnold, how did he look? How things going there. It was a fine day for Sam Darnold. He did have an interception on a deep pass he threw to Marquez Valdez-Scantling. It's kind of a toss-up just to kind of see what would happen. I don't think it wasn't some egregious pick or anything like that. That one was picked off by Kobe Bryant. Yeah, Kobe Bryant picked that one off. I'll double check my notes, but I'm 99% sure that's who picked it off. There was another pass where he had Cooper Kupp over the middle on a bit of a timing slant route, had to hit him in a specific window, and he was off target, and it should have been picked off by Devin Witherspoon, but he dropped it. So he had some low moments. He also had some high moments. He had some, a couple beautiful deep passes, touchdown pass, a couple things that were pretty nice on the day. So I thought he was fine. I think what you're starting to see in the offense and the kind of scheme that Clint Kubiak is designing, there's a lot of kind of looking off defenders to create space and windows for the quarterback to throw, and then, hitting what is hopefully an open player, not always deep down the field. So, a lot of them are kind of creating space for AJ Barner or Noah Fant in the middle. Sorry, there's a dog barking that's got Finn all worked up. Let me get Finn inside. I'll be right back. Finn, come on. Come on. Oh, Finn doesn't want any of this. He thinks this is a game. All right, fine. Go get eaten by the big German Shepherd. Enjoy that. All right. We'll forget about that. Hopefully, there was one time that this dog actually ran into our yard and bit Finn. So I would like to not have that happen on live streaming, but hopefully we'll avoid that. All right. So, yes, Sam Darnold, the offense. So I started noticing this, where part of when I first started seeing Sam Darnold in this offense, and I told you about his frantic feet and looking everywhere, that wasn't great. But I also started to recognize that part of what Clint Kubiak wants is for the quarterback to start looking in one direction, then to move the defense and to create a window, and then to find the guy open in the middle. A lot of these are like short to intermediate. A lot of them are to the tight ends or the running backs. Think about how George Kittle's been used over the years. A lot of these times he's getting the ball in an open space and there's, room for him to run after the catch. I think you're going to see some of that in this offense. I also did see some nice deeper passes that threatened a little bit more deep than had in previous practices. And then the other thing I'd say is, I still look at this receiver room and I have questions. That's my overriding reaction to the now 4 practices that I've seen, which is I don't know if the Seahawks have the horses in the receiver room like that they need. That is my biggest concern, bigger than the offensive line, bigger than Sam Darnold. Because if Sam Darnold's playing well and the offensive line's playing well, but they don't have anybody that can really threaten the defense, then I think they're going to have trouble. So that's my continuing concern with the makeup of the offense. On the flip side, I love what I'm seeing from the defense, especially the secondary. And you'll hear some sound from Julian Love. I'll play that in the next episode that I'm going to record after this one, of him talking about how the secondary and that room is closer together, that they are communicating nonstop. You'll hear some sound from Cooper Kupp about that as well. And, there were points in this practice where I saw, they have the big video replay board. It's not that big, but it's big enough that the players can look at it after every play. And the people that use that more than any other players on this roster is the secondary. And there was a lot of times where, Devin Witherspoon would point up at the monitor and just be like, hey, like, see, that's the deep over. They're doing like route recognition and route combination, kind of like, okay, so when they do that, we got to do this. And it was Julian Love, Devin Witherspoon, Reek Woolen, Josh Jobe, and Nick Eamon-Wari, Kobe Bryant. Like those were the group that were kind of in there the most. And there's a lot of, everybody was talking, everybody was going through it. And it's not like anger or excited. Like they're just talking ball. They just love like getting to the specifics of what's going on there. I think it's a really good sign. I wouldn't say it's like echoes of the LOB, but there are things about it that remind me of the way those guys handled practices. They didn't have a video board, but if something wasn't right in the way they defended something in a previous play, those guys would be talking to each other immediately on the sidelines. Richard Sherman was never one to hold his tongue when something wasn't going exactly as he thought it should. So, and Earl Thomas, similarly. So, I get a little bit of that vibe. And again, I'm not saying they're the LOB. I'm just saying it's a good sign that these guys have reached that level of connectiveness and familiarity, both with each other and with this scheme, that they're having that kind of high next level conversation about how to play defense. And that just stands out. I think the coverage again today was very good. And I admit I'm struggling to some extent to fully credit the defense because I'm not sure I'm seeing the offense that the receivers do things that I think are incredibly difficult to defend. DK Metcalf last year, there were times they could not guard him. Reek Woolen would be on him, all 6'4" of him. And like Reek Woolen's a tall cornerback, great athlete. And they just didn't have an answer for DK Metcalf. There's just not someone like that on this offense. They kind of have an answer for all of them. And it doesn't mean that they can't move the ball, they don't have some success, but there's just not that irrepressible force on the receiving part of the offensive side of the ball. So that just continues to be something that gets my attention. I see someone asking in chat, how do you become a club level member? If you are a YouTube member, first of all, you want to join as a YouTube member, there's a link in the description of the video for how to join as a YouTube member. And then also you get to pick or upgrade what level you are at. There are 3 levels. There's, I think there's Hawk's Nest, there's club level, and there's suite level. Club's the middle. So you just pick that and you will be a club level member. So hopefully you do that. And if you need help, I'm sure there's people in chat that can help you with that as well. All right. So let me look at my notes to kind of go through a few things. This was not a day for me. Like previous days, I would say generally Drew Lock looked like the better quarterback or having better days. And I've prefaced that before by saying, he's going against a very different set of defenders, so let's be careful about that. But even with that, I've thought Drew Lock has looked quite good today. I would say Sam Darnold was the better player. So I got to look at some of the guys that were doing punt returns. Now, maybe this is minutia that you don't care about, but I'm guessing if you're watching this show, you do care about the minutia because that's why I'm here. So the people that were catching punts. Steven Sims, no surprise. That's why he's here, is to be a returner. Jake Bobo, number 19, was catching punts. That's an interesting one. And I'm curious if that's going to be something we see more of. Also saw John Rice Plumlee catching punts. He did that some in practice last year. And then Demario Williams, the cornerback, also caught a few. So obviously Torrey Horton is not yet practicing. I would assume that once he's back, he might be back there catching and doing some returning as well. But those were the guys that did it so far. I thought Sims looks solid, looks experienced, looks sure-handed. Nothing, I think, huge to report there. Ernest Jones did not practice today. Again, that's kind of expected at this point as he's continuing to recover. But he was running hills, running the berm at the beginning of practice. And he was he was in and around the guys throughout practice, talking to them, had his jersey on. Uchenna Nwosu was there in attendance. He seems to be further away from being ready to suit up because he wasn't even wearing his jersey. I didn't see him doing any kinds of running or drills or anything like that. So I think, who knows? Training camp doesn't start until the end of July. Maybe in 6 weeks he'll start. I wouldn't be surprised if Uchenna Nwosu starts training camp on PUP. That doesn't mean he's going to start the season on PUP. Remember, PUP is for players that do not aren't yet ready to practice, they can come off PUP at any time during training camp. And we'll just see. We really don't know what things are going on with Uchenna. And Mike McDonald is always tight-lipped about that. So I didn't even ask about it this time. So one of the things I like today, if you've been following my reports, you know that I'm pretty obsessed with the offensive line. I feel like everything about the future of this team depends on this offensive line coming together, growing together, being good together. And so I've been really interested to watch them. And I find it fascinating to watch John Benton coach that offensive line and some of the drills that he runs that are different than drills that I'm accustomed to seeing the offensive line go through. Today, they do a lot of combo block drills, and I've talked to you about that before, but they'll split up the left half of the line and the right half of the line, and they'll have one of the centers go to one side and one of the centers go to the other side. And so it's like all the left guys, like Cross and Jarrell as 1 and 2 on the left side, and then Zabel and Satawa Lamea as 1 and 2 on the guards. Anyway, and then they do the right side. Well, one of the things that they were doing that was cool, I'm going to see if I can articulate what I was seeing, but they would have the center and the guard, or was it the guard and the tackle? It doesn't really matter. It was 2 guys. And there was 2 defenders that were really just other offensive linemen carrying blocking pads, like targeting pads. And the 2 offensive linemen that were doing the drill, the goal was they would try to do what they've been doing in other drills, which is one of them comes off the line, knocks into the player that the outside or the inside or the outside player is engaged with, and then continuing on to the second level. So they want a double team on that first level and then continuing on to the next level of the blocking scheme. Well, what they had happening this time was there were certain plays where the defenders would step differently. And so the offensive lineman didn't know until after the snap how the defenders were going to defend that particular play. And so there'd be times where, let's say it's Christian Haynes firing out to the right, running off the ball quickly, and he's expecting to be able to run into the outside player and then turn in to get to the second level. Well, there'd be times where the second level guy would step to the inside and toward the line of scrimmage. And in that case, he had to adjust his route, not try to double team, and simply turn to get the outside shoulder of the guy that had come inside to the middle of the line. Because if he didn't do that, that guy would have a free run right to the backfield. So what I liked about this was it wasn't just a repetitive drill of, okay, you do this, and then you do this, you do this, and then you do this, and over and over and over again. There was some actual read and react built into it. There was thinking, there was technique to it, and it varied, along the way. I give you that example because the line's so young and it needs every bit of coaching that John Benton, Rick Dennison, Justin Out, and the whole crew have to offer. And I think they're getting that. I think they are. And there's been too many times that, the Seahawks just kind of look a little lost on their assignments. It's not even necessarily a talent thing. They're not on the details. And it feels like this coaching staff is going to have these linemen on the details in a way that is different than we've seen in previous years. So I continue to be pretty bullish on what I'm seeing from the offensive line. I'm going to keep laughing as I say it, but I mean, I continue to really like what I see from Anthony Bradford. I'm going to ask the coach about him tomorrow. I want to get more details there, but I think that guy's got a lot to offer. And if he can find his way to actually doing it, it would be great for the team. He's super talented. I think that when I watch Anthony Bradford and Christian Haynes go through the same drill, whether it's pass protection or run blocking, generally I feel like Anthony Bradford is the more impressive player. That's to my eye. That doesn't mean the coaches feel that at all. But one of the things we are seeing that's interesting, this happened today. Christian Haynes was taking more snaps at backup center. And Jalen Sundell was taking snaps with the starters at right guard. This wasn't exclusive. This wasn't the only place that it happened. I saw Jalen Sundell take snaps at left guard. They were playing Jalen Sundell at guard. This is something I'd asked McDonald about, I don't know if at the combine or at the annual meeting, wherever it was. And they're kind of like, no, we like him at center. But if Jalen Sundell was athletic enough to be a backup tackle last year, then he's certainly athletic enough to play guard. I don't know if he's big enough. And there was definitely one rep where I saw Leonard Williams really get the better of him. And Leonard Williams is going to get the better of a lot of people. But it was a good kind of, I mean, that's why he's out there. That's why you're getting these reps, is to see how he can hold up against the best. And it wasn't a great rep for Jalen Sundell, but who knows? I wasn't watching every single one of his reps, and it's hard for me to say. And until the pads come on, it's really hard to say in general how these guys are looking. But it is interesting that they were looking at Jalen Sundell in that way. Also interesting that Christian Haynes continues to get more snaps at center than he did last year. So one thing to watch, and we'll go there. I will also say that when Abe Lucas, when his hands hit the pads, the blocking pads, not the football pads, but it makes a different sound than when the other guys are hitting it. Man, that guy is bringing a force with his punch, and I think he's got a lot of good things ahead for him this year. I'm really looking forward to seeing him run full speed, be full strength, and really get after it this year. So, I continue to really like what I'm seeing from the offensive line. I think that they're making good progress, and we'll see where it goes from there. All right. Let me look through my notes at some other things. Kenneth Walker. So he was running on the side. Coach McDonald said he's got a little ankle thing, but nothing serious. He did do drills. I saw him working through some of the drills, the non-contact drills. He's fine. I don't think there's anything serious there. I think they're just being taking it as a precaution. They're doing a lot of work on bootlegs today. So flood concepts, if you're familiar with this, when they run a stretch, it looks like it's gonna be an outside zone one direction, it's a bootleg, they roll out the other way. And while that's happening, all the tight ends and the receivers that were running out in front of what was gonna be an outside zone curl back and become three different levels of availability to kind of flood a zone. So a quarterback has, short, intermediate, deep options to attack. And they were doing some of that work today. That looked, familiar and good, kind of competent offense. Okay. So there was one play that I loved, man. This is just during positional drills, and offensive line was working on pass protection. So this was not run blocking. And the drill was simple. It was just the offensive lineman, gets into a pass set and then punches with, both hands into an offensive lineman on the other side who's holding a blocking pad that the person hits, right? Well, Christian Haynes goes, he does it fine. Anthony Bradford goes, he does it fine. Gray Zabel goes, he does it fine. And then Olu Olutimi goes, and he knocked Federico I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Federico, the undrafted free agent center, flat on his back. And John Benton laughs and says, "Holy hell, we got to kill." So it was cool to see Olu have that kind of power in his punch and be the guy. I would not have guessed he would be the guy that would have that moment in practice, but he did, and it was a cool one to see. So cool there. John Bennett was really working with them in that drill about making sure to get their hips like get their hips in front of the guy, and then to be able to have the power to punch up. That was cool. They were doing work on crowd noise today. So on like, being able to operate with crowd noise. So they had that kind of piped in for some of it. And I happened to be next to Mike McDonald when he walked onto the field, and there was a ref that shook his hand, and he turned to the ref and he said, make sure you call those false starts today. So I think he really, and they did pretty early on, they called some false starts as the offense. And there was also some offsides from the defense as the team was kind of getting used to the noise and operating and doing all that stuff. Cody White's having a nice off season. And here's my hottest take. I don't think it's crazy that Cody White could push MVS for snaps at X. I think Cody White, he's doing everything he's supposed to do. He's a big-bodied X receiver. He can threaten deep. He's not the biggest deep threat, like speed-wise. He is good at contested catches. And in fact, today he had a beautiful touchdown catch over the middle, and he got tangled up with, I think it was Kobe Bryant. They got a little bit too physical for Mike McDonald's preference, but he still made the catch. He had, another deep catch. And that's one of the plays that had Devin Witherspoon turning to the replay. He wasn't out in the field at that time. Like, he wasn't defending it, but he turned to the replay and he's pointing to it to show his other secondary member. See, that's the deep end. We got to do this, blah, blah, blah. So I think Cody White's doing really, really well. I think Damian Martinez, you can't really tell anything about running backs in almost any practice, to be honest. He looks sudden. He looks good when he gets the ball. He runs with aggression. We all know this about him. Let's see. Shamar Jean Charles had a pick today, kind of during. It's not really 7v7. They just had like the secondary back there. They didn't have the linebackers, I don't think. But he did have a pick, and as he was running it back, Josh Jobe and Reek Woolen kind of came off the sidelines and were running next to him and hyping him up. Let me double check. Tyrone Broden had a decent practice, had a nice adjustment on a deep ball, made a nice catch there. Did he make? There's another play where he almost made the catch, but I think it was knocked away. I think right now, again, I'm just looking through my notes, and these are in somewhat random order. It's looking like Robbie Oots is the top of the fullback depth chart. He and Brady Russell have been kind of rotating, but I think Robbie Oots is the top of the depth chart there. We'll have to keep looking at that. What else? A lot of running plays, which I just who knows? Nehemiah Pritchett. He did break up a play to Cody White. It was a nice breakup for Nehemiah Pritchett. He also got beat a couple of times, which is kind of what happens with Nehemiah Pritchett, unfortunately. Jalen Milroe. He had one of his better passes. It was a nice play action fake to John Rice Plumlee over the middle on kind of an intermediate pass. Again, he continues to seem most comfortable throwing the seams to the middle of the field. Intermediate, like that area seems to be where he makes his best throws. That was a nice one. I mean, he also had a play where there was kind of pressure in his face, and he was trying to dump it off to a running back who was, 5 steps away, and he couldn't get the ball to him. He threw it into the ground. So, he's still a work in progress. Let's see. A lot of dump offs, a lot of running plays. Cooper Kupp had some nice catches on it, like a deep out. Okay. There was one play where Sam Darnold actually went through his progressions and then scrambled and took off running. And it looked good. He is a good athlete. If you don't know that about Sam Darnold, he's definitely capable of scrambling. And Devin Witherspoon was on the sideline, and he says, All right, Sammy. He was like, I think he kind of didn't know that Sam Darnold had that in his game. But I think the defense was impressed that Sam Darnold had the gear that he was able to reach on that scramble. It was kind of funny. Let's see. 49. This is a new tight end. I got to double check my roster here. Where did he go? Tight ends. There he is. Marshall Lang, 6'4", 249 pounds, out of Northwestern, undrafted free agent. He had a couple catches today, some nice catches, so that was good. Elijah Arroyo had some catches, nothing like crazy, but had a good practice. I think one of the best throws of the day was a Sam Darnold kind of going through his progressions and then hitting Cody White on a deep ball down the right side of the field. There was one point where I had to ask Siri because I didn't know the name of the song, but the song Narco by Blaster Jax and Timmy Trumpet came on, and all the players started jumping up and down. They were pretty excited about that song. So if you want to know what the players are into right now, that's one you can look up. There was a red zone drill where they were the scenario was they were down by 3 points with 12 seconds to go, inside like the 10-yard line. And Sam Darnold had MVS. He threw it like perfect throw, and Reek Woolen just had better coverage, knocked the ball away. This is where Drew Lock had the touchdown to Cody White on the slant, where he and Kobe Bryant got tangled. Cody White looked like he got a little bit banged up on that play. Let's see. Oh, there was a play. There was a new scenario where they were like at the 40-yard line toward the end of the game. I can't remember all the details of the scenario, but Drew Lock goes through his progressions and then swings it out to a running back in the flat. I believe it was Damian Martinez. I'm not positive. And of all people, Mike Morris is right there and slams into the guy. Probably more contact than they want to see during these practices, but it was a big collision, and he was hyped, being a defensive tackle, covering the guy in the flat. And he, after the play, pulled his helmet off and was screaming. The defense erupted from the sideline. They all swarmed around him. So a nice play there for Mike Morris. What else? So Nick Eamon-Wari, this is an interesting one. He continues to be a guy that, Mike McDonald is spending a lot of time with, and so are other coaches, like a lot of one-on-one attention, and he's seeking out the coaches as well. There's some really cool comments from Mike McDonald on Nick Eamon-Wari. Also heard from Julian Love on him as well. So I'll play some of those. That'll be on the show that airs tomorrow. But I think some encouraging signs about, for a guy that had some question marks about his makeup, quote unquote makeup, and, was he going to be a good fit? Like, those seem unfounded right now. And he is locked in, he's working hard, and he's got a lot to learn. I don't think he's going to just burst into the scene and be perfect, but there's some pretty good signs. I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing there. And I'm encouraged by what I interpret as the personnel, the front office saying, okay, we gave you this guy. He's a little raw. Now you got to make him great. And the coaches seem to have taken the baton and are running with it. So, and the player seems very open to the coaching. So I think all those things are positive. I can't tell you that Nick Eamon-Wari's made some great play that I can point to, but he also isn't getting burned. I'm not seeing him continually getting exploited. So, so far so good there. That was also kind of interesting to see. All right. Let's see. Boy, Mafe had a nice rush that should have been a sack today. I think that was really it. I think those are the big highlights. Mike McDonald continues to just seem very comfortable in his own skin in a way that's a little bit, well, not that he was uncomfortable last year, but I just think he really knows what he wants to do, and it's his place now. This is McDonald's house, and I think he feels comfortable moving around in it. And Mike Sando, Mike Silver were there today. It was good to chat with both of those guys. Be curious to see what they're making their rounds through all the different camps. I'll see if I can get Mike Sando on the show tomorrow. I think Dave Bowling's going to be there as well, so maybe I'll get both of them on for a late afternoon appearance. We'll see how that goes. All right, everybody. I'm going to make that it for today. If you haven't given the show a like and click subscribe, please do. Also, head on over to jkboots.com. Use code HawkBlogger. Get $75 off the best pair of boots you'll ever own, as well as giving $15 for every purchase to Wildland Firefighters Foundation. Protects our Northwest Forest firefighters, gives them all the equipment they need to keep our Northwest forests safe and them safe while they're keeping them safe. So jkboots.com, code HawkBlogger, and go to patreon.com/HawkBlogger. Sign up, get instant access to ad-free audio of this and every other show that I do, as well as access to our Discord channel, and you will be verified as a patron on hbtix.com, which gives you a lot of cred and trust. So when someone is looking to sell a ticket or buy a ticket, they know that you're somebody that they can verify is a Seahawks fan and not a nasty 49ers fan who's just trying to get a good deal on a ticket in Lumen Field. All right, everybody. Let me see if there are any super chats. There are. I will get to those. Will Fries, the Minnesota Vikings guard, has this to say. Word from Niners is that Purdy is looking bad while Mac Jones looks great. What are the chances Brock getting benched for Mac at some point this season? Let's create a QB controversy by week 1 by making Brock look terrible. I think 0.00000% chance that that's going to happen. They just gave Brock Purdy a bag, and the guy played in a Super Bowl. And I think that's highly unlikely. Maybe my zeros are too many. Maybe there's a 1 somewhere in there. Because I do think Brock Purdy struggled to handle the full weight of the offense when things weren't going right the end of last year. And I think they're going to have more offensive line problems. I think they're going to potentially have more run game problems. And I think that is a question mark whether or not they've got a receiver room that's as good as they want it to be. So maybe there's some chance, but I think it's highly, highly unlikely. All right. Dreams. Is JSN and Cup just not showing up? Our defense too good? JSN and Cooper Kupp are making plays, but a lot of these are like intermediate short passes. They're route-based plays. They're not physical. They're not plays where it's like, wow, this guy is incredibly tough to cover. They're not coming out of a break so rapidly that you're like, wow, they're leaving the guy in the dust. They're not blazing by somebody. So I think that's also part of who they are as players. And, Darrell Jackson for the 2005 Seahawks was not some physical freak, but he was a very talented receiver and did a lot for the team. Doug Baldwin, I think he was kind of a physical freak, but he was really great getting in and out of his breaks. He was great in his release, getting off the ball. There's such a long way to go with this. The offense is still getting installed. These guys are getting used to each other. There is so much that could change over the next few months as the team preps for the regular season. I'm just telling you that right now, it's not the most impressive, physically imposing group. That's kind of where I'm at with it. And then Seahawks are Life 12 says, how did the O-line look today? All caveats, I will just say offensive line, defensive line judgments during unpadded practices is, not wise. So I'm not going to sit here and make any grand declarations one way or another. I like the way it's being coached. I like the way the players are looking. I like the physical shape that they're in. I like the way they're moving. I'm bullish. I will now maybe look very silly few months from now. We'll see. But I think this is gonna be the best Seahawks offensive line in a number of years. That's my prediction. A lot left to see. I definitely want to see the pads come on, and that'll give me a lot more information. But that's currently where I'm at. All right, everybody, that will do it for this episode. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I will see you all with a instant premiere tomorrow morning where I'll play sound from Mike McDonald and Julian Love and Cooper Kupp, and I'll react to it. And then I will be back probably later that day. I probably won't do a second show, but Real Hawk Talk this week will be on Thursday. So we've got a bunch of content coming up for you. Can't wait. Make sure you've liked and subscribed. I will see you all later. Until then, I'm Brian Nemhauser. This has been a Seahawks Instant Practice Report from Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care.